Hello, everyone. So today, this will be our demo for the assignment for color correction, and I'm going to cover just that specifically. So we're going to have a workflow in terms of how to properly do a color correction workflow, um, and also we'll have a final discussion on LUTs and adjustment layers as well. Now, with this particular workflow, many of you might say like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do that. I just, throw down one of those LUTs and that's it and whatnot, or just quickly go and make adjustments on the clip." Well, what we're going to do here though is show you a workflow where we go in order, we take a few steps, and in terms of the order of steps, uh, your first thing you want to do is correct for luminance. Then the second step will be correcting for chrominance, and making refinements. And then the last part we cover is adding adjustment layers, and then um, adding looks via the LUT tables, and that's built into Premiere, and then making adjustments on those. So those are the more or less the steps that we're going to be going over. So for this particular demo, I'd recommend, since you're going to have it at your disposal for the next few weeks, take notes. Highly recommend you take notes. I mean, if you haven't figured that out by now, I mean, that is something I always encourage. Take the notes. And this way you don't have to keep coming back to the video. You can just do the notes, and this way you can just use the video as a reference going forward. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I already have my project ready to go. It's one that you may have seen before, but this is the documentary that we shot in 2020 that is currently scheduled to premiere at the Bell Play Museum in 2021 and will play there indefinitely. So this is a scene or a shot from one of the interview people, or one of the interview subjects. Happens to be my mother-in-law. So, um, but we shot this in the summer of 2020. Now, let's start with first thing we can do when we're in Premiere Pro is as of the 2020 version, at least, we have a workspace, and when we do have a color, so we can go ahead and hit color, and it'll take us right into it. By doing this and using the color workspace, the advantage of doing that will be that we don't have to necessarily add any extra special effects, or or go into searching for effects. As we open up and start making adjustments in the Lumetri Color space, in the Lumetri Color, the effect gets of color correction gets added automatically. So remember, as we've been talking about different aspects of adding effects in Premiere, remember everything has been consistent in that we have been adding or adding effects per clip, and we're going to continue to do that in this particular show or project here. Now with these clips, the reason why we want to do that is because every time we do a shoot, the color itself will vary. It will be different depending on the conditions that we shot. Now for a lot of this that we did, and you'll notice even looking at it right now, you'll see that she has a very what we would actually call a cooler temperature, but a warm look, right? Because what we do know about color theory, and here's where we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I mean, that's something that you should cover in cinematography and lighting. But for color theory, these more amber looks are the 34, 35, 3600 degree Kelvin color temperatures, roughly. And anytime we get into looks where the images are bluer, right, or have a cooler look, well, those are hotter looks, technically. Think of it this way: in the morning, when the air is cool, when you step outside, you have a nice amber look to the world, right? It's got that warm feeling. Or even in the afternoon, we call golden hour, we have kind of a that beautiful glow, but it's later in the afternoon where it starts to cool off again. See, those are cooler temperatures. But if you notice, if you step outside at noon, it's the light can be overwhelmingly bright, and which again goes to the bluer cast. And that just is the way that the color temperatures work. And those temperatures traditionally are in the 5,000 degree Kelvin range and higher. Think of it also think of a campfire. If you ever light a match, you ever notice that the parts that are closest to the burning, or the whatever material you have that is burning, those tend to be the amber color. But when you go to the tips of the flame where it's really hot, you'll see that it's sometimes blue, or you'll see the blue areas of the flame. Those blue areas of the flame are the hottest parts of the flame. So again, just to reinforce those ideas, that technically hotter temperatures, 5,000 Kelvin and above, are blue, while cooler temperatures, which are 3,600 Kelvin and below, are more amber. Of course, sometimes when you're out in the field, we can't assume that people understand all aspects of the color theory. So we'll say, well, give me a warmer cast or a cooler cast. That tends to mean, in terms of the color translations, more than the temperature translations. So just keep that in mind. That's usually what people mean. But if you want to be specific, you say, do we want 35 or do we want 5,000 or 6,000? And if you say that, then you'll know, okay, if you want 5,000, you want a blue look. If you want 3,500, you want warmer amber look. So keep that in mind. So here we are with color. And the other reason why we also want to use this color workspace is it's going to add our scopes, which is another tool that we're going to utilize today. How to read the color scopes. All right, so as before, I'm using, again, this project, which is a documentary. I have the clip already set. We don't even have to worry about any audio or anything. So if you hear it, I mean, it's not a big deal. I have my targeting track set here to V1. This way I won't have any weird issues with any other layers getting targeted for color. This way we know exactly what we're working on. Now, to even reinforce that, we can always click on it. And if you notice when I did that, because I'm in effects controls, it gets loaded automatically. And as I mentioned, because we are in the color workspace, notice then that Lumetri Color is already added as an effect. So I don't have to go looking for it over here, and where I usually would in my effects. It's already added. So I can just leave this back to my project pane. Yeah, it's not going to be something we're going to be looking at in the project pane immediately, but we will come back to it on the last part when we talk about looks and LUTs and what those are. So we're going to go away from this for now. And here we are, selected our clip. And as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work on luminance. So luminance are the white values, light values, and black values. So we want to make sure that those are balanced first. That's always number one. And again, going forward, again, we balance our light level. We balance our chrominance. Those are the color levels or the hues. We make sure those are balanced. And once we get all that set, then we apply our looks. And why do we do that? Why don't we just go and make our video look the way we quote unquote want it to? It's just going to give us overall a better color feel. And also the fact that if we remove the LUT, we know that our color has the integrity of its image. This also has to do with dynamic range as well. I mean, if you're experiencing the world outside, our color casts are pretty much always the same. Might have a cloudy day, but it's sort of being filtered by whether or not the full spectrum of light is hitting us or not, or if there's if maybe you're shooting light through a red filter or green filter. That there's that aspect of integrity, and we don't want to ruin that. We don't want to remove our natural color before we add a LUT. You'll see it just gives us a more satisfying look when we do that. If you ever have looked at a color correction tutorial, you'll notice that the professional ones, like if do a Google search for Chernobyl as an example, if you want to take a look at that. I've seen a few of those, and look at how much work they do in terms of all the layers of color correction. I mean, you're looking at about 70 layers sometimes. I think that's one that I saw once. You have so many layers. In this case, we're only going to do a few, but more than anything else, this is a means to get you started and how to think about color. And really at this point, the sky's the limit. So let's first look at our scope. So up here in our source pane, which is where we have typically been when we're editing, we go to Lumetri scopes. And I already have a few turned on. Now, when we're first working in this, I'm going to turn on what we typically have. This is what you're looking at. And even here, the first thing you're going to see really is an RGB parade, not an RGB parade, excuse me. You're going to look at a waveform. full color spectrum, RGB. And we're looking at a red, green, and blue. And just to show you, if I push play,
So now I'm starting my
all the
recording.
color. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute all this stuff. Mute, because I don't want to hear any audio. Oh yeah, there it is. So I got all the mutes. All right, here we go. So I just want to see the video. And notice I'm playing forwards and backwards. The movement over here of the scope is mimicking what we're seeing in terms of movement over here. So see, as our speaker moves, so do the colors. So it's kind of following her around a little bit. I personally don't like to use the waveform. It's just because all the colors are a bit unbalanced. So I can keep it, but I like to switch the waveform over to a Luma because I think it's more useful as we look at our white and black levels. Notice the numbers on the right go from 0 all the way to 306. Levels on the left go from 0 all the way to 120. For our purposes, we are interested in 100 and 255. 255 is a number indicative of the bit range system we're working on, again, related to your computer space, your digital workspace. And these color values are indicative of their number corresponding to the digital space. The dynamic range, in terms of a definition, is the replication in a lot of ways of the natural world into a digital world via photography, digital, or time-based medium, in our case, video. The dynamic range is a small spectrum. So the dynamic range in a lot of ways like the change to the full dollar, a change to the full dollar. You're like, well, what does that mean, change to a full dollar? Well, if we think about our full spectrum and the visual acuity that we have as humans, we can see from 0, let's say if we were doing the values of 0 to 100, and this has nothing to do with this at this moment, but just in general, let's say 0 to 100 is our visual acuity, where 0 is black and 100 is full white, and everything in between is what we can see. Well, dynamic range would only be able to, let's say, cover like increments of 20, let's say one increment of 20. So if you think of it that way, then that means you can only see 20% of what we can actually see in the natural world. Exactly. That just gives you an idea of sort of where technology is and where our physiology is. We just can see so much more, or we just have a richer ability to differentiate between color than we can currently capture at this time. Now, we can fool the brain into thinking that we can capture what we see in the natural world. But again, this is why we always say we're not capturing reality, but a version of reality, because we can't even capture full reality. So there you go. If you're ever wondering about those arguments of like, well, I don't know about that argument, there you go. That's even more proof in the pudding that what we're actually doing is creating versions of reality, creating simulations or simulacra of the world that we live in. So there you go. Reality is really just an idea or is something that we experience daily, while what we watch on the screen is is 30-40% of what we actually experience. Let your brain kind of wrap around that for a second. But yes, it's like, whoa, that is a kind of a neo moment in a lot of ways. And the math, the way that it breaks down, goes up to the full range of 255, which would be full white. This is why you see these numbers here. Do a Google search if you want to know more about that in terms of the color theory. But again, I'll leave that to your cinematography professors to answer these questions. But for us, our theory, or the theory in our color correction, in terms of using the numbers, we want all of our colors. We want our light levels, we want our red, our green, and blue, all of our color levels to be approaching 100. And we also want our dark levels in the same time to be approaching 0. We don't necessarily want them on the 0. We don't necessarily want them on the 100, but we want them approaching, because as we add all of our different layers, it might push them a little bit further and just kind of add to that richness. So we don't want to go over, because anything over the 100 is lost. Anything over the 100 will be similar to an audio clipped file. That's usually the part where if we're shooting something bright, that's when it becomes completely unwatchable, when we're past the 100. So we want things to approach 100, and that's the way we're going to talk about the color theory stuff. So let's start with our luminance. And we can, what I like to start with in all of this, I want to make sure that my correct clip is selected. So there it is. And here's all the audio. I guess it goes together. Doesn't really matter at this point, but there's the clip we're looking at. And we're going to jump over here to Lumetri Color because I got added because I just clicked on color. If you don't see that, remember, go to Window, Workspaces, and then do the reset to save layout if you have any errors. So we'll do that now just to make sure we're okay. Make sure everything's back to normal, or quote unquote normalcy. So back to Lumetri Scope. What I'm going to start with is curves. That's where I like to look. But just to show you, we have basic correction here. We can do automatic white levels with this dropper, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do everything by hand. We're going to get into creative in a moment. Again, that'll be the last step. We're going to start with curves. Why do we start with curves? Well, I like to start with curves because that's what most of us are familiar with. I mean, how many of you used Photoshop before, right? It's pretty much the same idea. So here's our white and our dark. So white is over here at 100%, black at 0. And if we look at our image now, we can see that our white level peaks between 60 and 70, or between 153 and 178. If I grab this guy and I move to the left, it's going to make it go higher. And notice the image. I'm seeing the results of it also in my image as well. If I go to if I notice over here on my furthest right, I'll see that I do have some information that's getting pretty hot. So I want to look at the highest point right now, and I'm pretty happy with it. I like to stop just before the halfway point between 90 and 100, and I can see her. She looks pretty good. And as I mentioned before, I don't really want things below 0. See, this is kind of, and because anything that goes before that, we're just not going to see. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. Put it about right there. And that looks pretty good. If I want to kind of compare what it looked like before to where I'm now, I can uncheck it. Before, after, before, after. So you can see that we've added a bit of vibrancy to the image. Not bad, not bad. So let's continue. So we covered our luminance already. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to add more scopes. I'm going to add 2 more at least. I'm going to add one called RGB Parade, and I'm going to add something else called a vector scope. So let's click on the wrench and let's go to RGB Parade. Boom. RGB Parade is to me extremely useful because we're looking at the red, green, and blue split up into the 3 separate elements. And this will allow us then to balance each one accordingly. Okay, because remember, we saw over here, we noticed that there was something that was way over here that I could barely see. But if we break it down in our RGB, we see, it was a red that was actually doing that. So that's what we brought way up. At this point, we don't necessarily need to have waveforms anymore. In fact, I'm going to close them out because I'm not going to really be working with light and dark. Now I'm going to be working with color. So I like to get rid of that. And let's just work with this for now. So, and the beauty about working with the curves is there it is, red, green, and blue. So it's almost like cheating, not quite, but hey, we can start working with it. I kind of like how it's already pretty high, the red. And it's, maybe I can bring it up a little bit, but the red's looking pretty good. Maybe just bring it up a little bit, because what happens if I brought it up, notice that the information kind of spread out a little bit more. That's another reason why we might want to move it up, because the information might have gotten crushed. So that's one thing that a term that you may have heard where we say we're crushing the blacks. That's anytime we approach 0 or below 0, and all of the color information just kind of goes to a muddy black. I mean, if you've ever done that sort of messed around with this color correction, you've noticed that kind of happen, and it gets cruddy black and pixelated and weird. That's what that is. That's the crushing of the black. Let's move on to green. So let's tap green, and now notice that our curve turned green, and I'm going to add more green information. So I'm going to try to balance that a little bit more with the red. And what I did is I'm actually going to use this top point as my reference, and I'm going to more or less bring it to the top. I'm liking the way that looks. Down here too, let's see what happens if I move my green up. Let's see if I get more color information moving up and down. Not necessarily, maybe just a little bit. So I'll do that. I'll get a little bit more of that color information. Look at that. She's looking really good. I mean, you can already see a big difference. I think there's a bit more vibrancy. So now let's work the blue a little bit. Let's go to the blue. Let's spread out that blue a little bit more. And notice if I go all the way left, see, she turns really blue. So we don't want that. Now if I'm just eyeballing it, even I can just look at her image and I'm like, I'm just kind of remove some of the green, like kind of balance in the middle. There we go. That's pretty good. And I don't even have to go all the way up. But if you notice this kind of major peak moment, it's a pretty good balance. Like maybe I'll balance the green and the blue out a little bit there. There we go. Hey, not bad. Before, after. Notice that she's looking pretty good. Let's see the black. I think the blacks will probably just find where we're at. I think so. So we're going to leave that alone. So she's looking pretty good. Notice we went from a very amber color to her. Now she has less of that. I think she looks more like she would during the day. And that's actually what we did. We color corrected her for a more of a warmer cast, or let's say hotter, we should say, because she has that more of a blue look. Again, before we shot her using an amber light. So, but we can see, we can pull it out of her still. Again, this is why it's very important. And I know this is something that many of your professors will preach to you. And I hope you're paying attention to that. The fact is, um, we want to make sure that we properly light everything from the beginning. The more that we are sensitive to the way our images are looking and that we're lighting it properly from the beginning, the less post work we'll have to do. And really the post work will just be sweetening things up. And that's kind of what I think of this. This is more of a sweetening, because if I were to just finish, this was the image, I'd be fine with that. It's a little gold, but hey, it's fine. But the fact that now we can do a nice color image, look at that. That just looks great. Because what this also will do is notice that the blues will come out. Some of the other aspects of the color will come to life. Where here, so the earth tones will kind of get drowned out. Now we kind of can see different aspects of the blues and the greens come out a bit more. All right. So we're not done yet though, because while we did give her more of a cooler cast, right? Again, we're talking about that look. Um, we still want to give her a little bit of warmth to her as a, as a person. So we're going to go to the wrench. We're going to do one more thing. We're going to do the vector scope, and we're going to do the vector scope YUV. Now we don't want to do the HLS. The HLS is similar. It's good, but we're going to start with the YUV first. The reason why we're going to work with the YUV and why we're looking at this is pretty much a color wheel. That's why. It's a color wheel overall with just the color kind of drowned out, but we can kind of see it in the background. Now, another reason why we're using the YUV also is because of this line here. This is called the skin tone line. Now, the default for skin tone line is more towards a Caucasian skin color, but we can err on, one side or the other, where if we're going more towards a yellow or more towards a red in terms of someone's skin tone. Like for me, if you're Mexican, I think it would tend to be in here. This is where I kind of tend to cast things. But how do we use this and how do we affect this change? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, or actually I'll just close out curves. I'm going to pop into color wheels and match now. This is one I like to use. And when we're here in color wheels and match, we have something called face detection. Make sure that that's checked off. Remember, and the examples I'm giving you are of the 2020 edition of Premiere. We can skip shadows and highlights. In fact, I've depending on different people you talk to, and I've had several conversations with people. Some people say like they don't even touch the highlights and shadows. They do most of their stuff in the midtones and maybe shadows, but they leave highlights alone. And typically, if you are lighting it properly, usually in a professional workflow, that's correct. You usually don't even mess with highlights. Notice again, this is the color wheel mimicking the vector scope. And what we want to do then is move this further along this line here. I wouldn't be surprised if future versions actually include this line, but I believe even Da Vinci started to do it. So I'm going to move a little bit more left. And notice like I don't have to do a lot, but I start to see her warm up. Look at that. Real nice. Before, after, before, after. See, we just gave her a little bit of warmth. And I think it's a lovely image. We kind of brought her to life, I think, very nicely. We can maybe give her a little bit more. And as we do that, this will start to creep further along this line. See, before, it's further towards the center, after. See, further along that line. There we go. Very nice. But we can even see when I did this, it affected even more of this stuff over here as well. Because where we are now. So again, and if we do it proper from the beginning, we notice that everything looks pretty good though. We didn't affect it too much. The color is pretty nice. So there you go. And it's all set. If we go to effects controls, it's all being saved here. At any point, I can hit the reset button and remove all the work that we just did. In fact, let's do that now. Boom. See, that's everything. And what I did is I undid it and brought it all back. But let's see, reset. Boom, reset it. Everything's back to our 0. And if we look at our curves, we'll see that everything's back to our 0 where everything started. Let's undo that and back to where we were. So I think we did a pretty good job with that look. Before, and even this, before and after. I mean, huge difference, I think. Huge difference. Remember, we're applying this color correction to the clip at this point. All right, let's see. So we've done that. We've done the saturation levels. We did the vector scope. Here's a fun tip I want to show you guys. So let's say that I used to do this demo also as part of this lesson where we start talking about looks and LUTs. But before we get into that, we're going to do one more quick thing. It's because it's in the RGB curves area, and it's right here under the hue saturation curves. Hue saturation curves are what can allow you to create these really these kind of interesting looks. Something like the movie Pleasantville. You might say, what's Pleasantville? Well, in the movie Pleasantville, most of life, if you haven't seen it, it's a fun movie. I'd recommend it. Tobey Maguire role, and I think Reese Witherspoon are both in it. And then William H. Macy and Jeff Daniels, and I forget the woman who's in it. It's from blank. Anyways, the movie is about a couple kids, especially this boy, it's Tobey Maguire, who's addicted to TV. He watches this old show that's in black and white called Pleasantville. It's one of those movies where like the two siblings fight over a remote or something, and then they both get sucked into the world. So one of those like, oh no, I'm sucked into the world. How do I get out kind of things. Well, in the movie, everything's in black and white. They get thrown into this black and white world, and through let's say awareness of life and not being so, it's funny, it's a sort of an anti-conservative movie, but to say that once you are celebrating life and all the richness of life, the world itself starts to turn into color, and the people in the world start to see in color. And so even in that movie, you have certain characters that are in color, and you have certain aspects that are still in black and white interacting back and forth. So we can do that also in Premiere. I'm going to do that with green. Let's say I'm going to turn everything black and white and maybe keep this green color over here. So the way we do that, and with Premiere, it's pretty easy. We're going to go to hue versus saturation. Now, there's other tools out here that can help you with that as well, but we're just going to focus on this one today in the interest of time. But we hit the dropper, and let's say I want to sample this green over here, and let's say boom. And when I did that, here's the green. That's where it lives. Everything else is outside now. What it did is it added 3 keyframes, just like when we did our lesson on change over time. But in this case, it's just going to apply the keyframes to color. And I can even make these keyframes slowly dissolve into black and white, or slowly go from black and white to color. Watch how I do this. So if I get in the middle one, what I'm doing is I'm emphasizing the green color. Look at how this became super, super bright. Let's bring it down. This is where it was. I could also remove all the color, so all the saturation from it. Look at that. Now this became kind of almost black and white, especially this area. Let's undo that. Now at the same time, I can keep the green color and then pull down the rest of the color around it. So let's go ahead and pull down this side. Look at that. And we'll pull down this side. Let's look at that. Whoa, pretty cool, huh? I might want to keep a little bit. Now, what I could also do if I want is add more keyframes, so I can add more green or keep more, because in this case I had multiple green. But look at that. And not only that, but just to show you that it works on video, it's not just a mask. See, and there we go. And that's what it looked like. That's the color correction, but there we go. Now she's in black and white, and this is in green. Yes, we can do that as a mask effect and whatnot, but isn't this much easier to do it this way? Um, so there we go. And we can, of course, just undo that if we don't like it. One thing that I've also seen is that you can also double click your any of the keyframes and they'll go away. So if you had set some green in here, or let's try to do like a brown. Let's say I want to keep like a brown color over here. Look at that. There we go. And I'm going to keep a little bit of that. And so, again, it's all very subjective. And if I want to remove them, I just double click and boom, they'll go away. So I can always reset it. So this is a fun tool to use if you want to play with different aspects of looks and colors, emphasize some things, make everything black and white, and keep one color. Or one of the more famous examples is this: if you go out, you're shooting a rose, and you want the rest of the world to be black and white, and you want the rose to be red. Well, you just sample the red color. It'll put the dots here or here, depending on your hue, and then you just pull down everything else, and there you go. You have your red. Not only that, but again, to emphasize this green again, to do that. As I pull everything down, I can also emphasize the green and pull that up, see? So there you go. So again, multiple ways of doing that technique. So it's a fun one. All right. So now the very last thing we're going to look at is I was showing you this color correction technique by applying per clip. Now, one more thing we can do is we can work with something called adjustment layers. If you've ever worked in Photoshop, then you've done versions of that. It's the same thing. An adjustment layer is just sort of like an empty shell or like a section of time that in our case it'll have a certain color, but that you can then put effects on, and it'll affect everything that's underneath it in terms of the layer. So what my goal would be then to put a adjustment layer. If I want to affect everything under here, I want to put it at the top. So I'd have to put it like on layer 6. This way, all the video underneath will get that color look. What do I have here? Bus driver. Okay. I don't even know. I was like, what is this image? What's going on? Well, either way, I'm going to put it up here, and this way you'll be able to see how it affects everything underneath. So what we want to do, and let me select my pane. I'm going full screen here. All right, so here is our project pane with our different bins. And what I'm going to do is go to the bottom right over here and do new item, click on that, and there's my adjustment layer. And I just click that. It's going to ask me what my video settings are. And what it's going to do is really just default to whatever the sequence is. So I'll just say okay to that. That's fine. So here's my adjustment layer. At this point, I can click on it and call it whatever I want. So I'm going to call this one brown layer, because I'm going to make everything underneath brown. Or let's call this one blue layer, because I already have a brown layer. Like, what do you mean? See, I already have a folder called adjustment layer. So let's put this inside. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to have something that says make everything brown. So let's do that. So the way we add adjustment layers is all I do is drag and drop. I don't put it on the clip. Remember, I'm going to put it on a layer itself. And I want to assign sort of a layer just for that adjustment layer, because everything is going to go underneath it. Okay, everything that's underneath it will be affected. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to put it, in fact, up here on 6, because I also want this funky little clip up here to get colored. So we're going to put make everything brown on layer 6. Boom, just like that. Now, I don't see anything right now. I'm like, well, I don't necessarily need it there, perhaps, because this is just the titles. So I just wanted to start right here where the video starts. And like I mentioned, I wanted to run for the entire length of the video. So I'm going to pull this all the way out. So go to the edge, pull out the section. There we go. No, it actually goes a little bit further. There we go. Now I'm at the very end. There we go. And there it is. So that's what the adjustment layer is. See, it's as long as it needs to be. I can make it as long or as short as I need it to be. And everything that'll be underneath it will be affected. So there we go, the adjustment layer. Remember, I can add effects to it. I can add blurs. I can add animation stuff to that layer. And again, it'll affect everything that's underneath it. So how do I do those adjustment layers? Well, let's close this out. Let's close out curves because we actually find it under creative. So I'm going to open up creative and I'm going to apply a LUT. So what is a LUT? The famous LUT. Well, the definition of LUT is just look up table. That's what a LUT is, a lookup table. And it's just a reference to the color information that will be applied to a clip to change that color. And if you've ever looked over here in, again, your effects pane, so let's go look at effects. I want to show you just how many colors we have. So if we look at Lumetri presets, I'm going to open that up. We have all these things that are cinematic, film stock, monochromatic, speed looks, and technical. Cinematic looks, here you can drag and drop any of these and apply it immediately to your clip. And this is the color that it'll adopt, of course, in combination with its own existing color palette. Here are film stock. So if you want to kind of mimic a film stock look, here's the Fuji Kodak 695, Fuji 125 2395, and then the Rayla 500D Kodak 2393. And again, we can apply all those. We have monochromatic looks, so we have different types of single color looks. Speed looks. Now the speed looks are interesting because we can apply them via different cameras. Look at these cameras. Boom, boom, boom. If you have, these are predominantly ARRI Alexa. This is predominantly Blackmagic. Canon 1D, 5D, 7D, C3 100, 500, GoPro, Nikon, and Red. So if you've been shooting on a Nikon, or let's say you're shooting on a Nikon and a Red, and you want your Nikon to look like a Red, well, you can go and find the Red that you're shooting on, and you can apply the LUT to both of your clips, and they'll both have that red look to it. So it kind of helps match some of your content. Let's close out cameras. Let's look at universal. So here are kind of universal that don't necessarily have any camera attached to them. Again, you can use those as well. Let's close out the speed look, and let's look at technical. Now these are just different 12-bit range, 8-bit range, 10-bit range. Now this all has to do with the color space and how you recorded and how you filmed it. Again, these are questions typically that you answer in production or in cinematography. And this is a setting that you will have set up within your camera in the color space before you started filming. So we're not really going to talk about these too much. All right, so I wanted to show you all those presets, and I mean, again, you have all these effects, whatnot. Again, check those out at your own leisure when you're ready. All right, let's get out of here. So we're going to look at look, and I'm going to click this. Boom, here are all my looks. Look at that, all these, so many. And these are the looks that I have right now in terms of that are installed in Premiere without even adding anything new. Some of you have already gone to different sites, like I think it's Red Giant and whatnot, that have free LUTs for students, whatnot. So that's what they're going to be giving you, and you can add them to Premiere. Just follow their instructions. We're just going to be using the default set. So when I start, all I want to make sure I have this selected because it's my adjustment layer. So I even my paranoia or my obsessiveness, my compulsiveness requires me to double click it because I want to make sure it gets loaded. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to look, and because I call this one make everything brown, let's find one that's like a brown look. One that'll be very obvious. Let's see, matrix, blue steel, turn a monochromatic, cinespace. This one I used to use, well, gold orange. Let's do gold tobacco because I know that one's very, very extreme. There we go. And now I've added this gold tobacco look to my adjustment layer. How do I know it's on everything? Because if I go forward, I can see it's all over all my clips. Even this bus driver look. Well, how do we know that's true? Because if I undo creative, look how he will change. See, he goes back to a blue cast. So just by adding the LUT to the adjustment layer, and now it's here, I can even move this around, see, and even make, again, if I keep adding more clips, I can add more to that. Adjustment layers are very powerful because I can even turn it off at any point this way by hitting the toggle output. See, there we go. If I'm not looking at it, back on, off, on, off. See, and this is also, again, this is why we balance first, because this is not balanced. This is balanced. Notice the difference. See, bright. It even looks like she herself has life and is not overwhelmed by that tobacco look. And instead, she has vibrance to her face. She has that lightness to her face, especially on the light levels over here and on the skin tone over here. This is still blue. That's still green. Where if I don't do the color correction, notice that we lose the green, we lose the blue. There's no vibrancy anymore. And then we lose her. She kind of almost fades into the background. This is why. This is your evidence. And this is why we always do a color correction before we apply our LUT and before we attempt to make any other specific looks. And this is why we're also disciplined and don't skip steps. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to do when you're applying your looks and your LUTs. Again, after you do your color correction. All right, so that's very important. Let's see. You can add more of these adjustment layers. Let's say if you want it to be only for your one clip. Or if you'd like, again, if again, I've added this clip now, and if I look at my effect control, I can reset that color myself if I want at any point like that. Because again, I selected her and I loaded her into my effects over here. I can add more though if I want another one of these. Again, I can just go into my effects, and if I want, I can just type in the word Lumetri. So I can add, let's see, where are you? Here we go, under video effects, color correction, there's Lumetri Color. So I can add another one if I want, just by double adding, dropping, and dropping. There's the one that we have, and there's the one I just added. So right now, this color is going to be subordinate to the Lumetri Color. If I want to change that, I can always drag and drop and put this up top like this. And why would I do that? Well, maybe I want to mask her face, because I can do that. I can create a mask now. See, like I'm going to show this to you guys really quick. Let's close out creative. Let's go back to curve. And then on her, let's say I want to add a little lightness to her. See, look how light that can go. And let's go back to the scopes, because the scopes are really what's going to help us out. This is where maybe I can go back to add my waveform Luma, so I can see how my light will be affected. Look at this. There we go. See, now I can see where it's changing. Let's feather her out a little bit. Look at that. And that actually comes out all right if I do that, I actually like that. Now the thing about it, see, she has a little brightness in her face. So this is like another technique you can do. For example, like if you are, that will mimic adding an extra little spotlight on your actor. And let's take it off so you can see what it looks like without it. Here's what it looks like without it. And here's what it looks like with. Just a little bit. See, it just adds a little extra. Now, what do you see that's happening? And we'll do it this way so you can see it. Notice that the mask isn't moving. Well, you all know how to do a mask effect. So what you can do is you go over here. Let's say you want to make it move to her face. Let's go to effect control. Here's my mask. Well, we want to do a mask path, right? So we'll turn it on. And then as we go forward, I want to see what that mask looks like. Let's select it. There we go. I moved it over a little bit. She moved over, so I'm gonna move it back over. And it's really just because she's moving a little bit off and on. So there we go. So let's see. And again, that's because I know how to do my mask effect. So let's select that mask effect. Look how it's going to move. It's kind of cool. It looks like now it's following your head. Look at that. Just doing those simple keyframes gives me enough. And that extra little light, again, it's just going to give me, these are the subtle, these are the very minor kind of almost subliminal types of effects that you add to your show that will, again, these are the ways you can cause your audience to look at at certain aspects of your mise-en-scène, right? Of your frame. And that's what we're doing. This, again, continuing the theme of manipulation, where the audience is looking where I want them to at all times. So there you go. Even as an editor, you have control over aspects of the lighting and the cinematography in terms of where you want your audience to look. So a very powerful technique. And this mask effect, what I just did, that's exactly also how you can do a search in your effects for like a blur. So if I did like a little blur, here we can do a channel blur, compound blur, Gaussian blur, the VR blur, fast blur, especially these the Gaussian blur. You can add the Gaussian blur and shrink it down and or make it into a mask, and there you go. That's how you can do then the old effect for "Don't look at me." You know, I'm a character in a cop show, and I don't want to show my identity. So let's see. We bring it over, put it on the actor here. Let's see. Where's my blur? There it is. I want it to be a mask. There's my mask. Put it on her head. Well, let's go from the beginning. So we'll start here. And then I can, because it's a blur. So I want this to be like, with the Gaussian blur, I want this 100%. You know, I want the blurriness to be at 100. So let's go all the way to 100. There we go. I can't see it, right? And because it's a mask, I can, create a little feather to make it look a little, a little not as harsh. And then what I do again is I do mask path, turn it on, move it forward a little bit, and then I can move it. And again, if I lose it, just tap mask. And we know it's correct because every time I move, a keyframe will appear. There we go. And now, if I just push play, here's what it looks like. See, now we can't see her identity via Gaussian blur. There we go. So that's how you do that. So I gave you guys a lot of cool little techniques, a lot of tips this week. And even with the effect stuff, I mean, really at this point, it's your imagination. What's also kind of fun, again, in terms of your imagination, remember, you can switch it out. Some of these you can do the inverted, where it's the opposite. Look at that. The only thing that's not blurred is her head. See, and it looks like a very complicated, like a more complicated technique than it really is. And it's just a matter of just knowing where these tools are. So what is the final lesson? Experiment. Have fun with this stuff. I mean, you're only going to be as good as how much you understand where the tools are and how much you want to experiment. So go for it. Try these different techniques, but remember to go in order. The lesson or how I want you to present your work will be listed. So go at it, break a leg. And as always, I want you to contact me with any questions you may have, and go break a leg, everyone. And yeah, have a very, very productive week. Take care.